There are three things that are salient about my work. One is science and the intersection between science and art and the role it plays in my work. Two, time and place. And three is energy. And we're going to cover that in this film. So to explain the genesis of where the monoliths originated, I'm going to refer briefly to my pod sculptures, some of which are here in the studio. And specifically, if you notice, the pod sculptures contain a nucleus or a form inside of a form, and that generated an understanding of where I wanted to move and in what direction to bring the sculpture off the wall. So the nucleus represented a really kind of singular, pure form, and I thought, well, what if I extract that form and I bring it to the floor and I take it out of the pot and it becomes a form unto itself? And that is what generated the original acrylic monoliths, one of which you see here. This piece is the second acrylic monolith I ever made. The first piece is in the collection of Beth Rudin de Woody, and it's much darker and kind of has a green-blue color composition. And this one is titanium, silver, with kind of a lighter glow inside of it. And then this led to, subsequently, the production of the aerospace monoliths. And specifically relating to science, in my practice, I've always strived to use new materials that have not been used before. So in my acrylic monolithic sculptures and in my wall sculptures, I developed a new process that does not utilize paint whatsoever, and it's all utilization and layering of various acrylic materials, and specifically, the secret juice in my work relates to optical materials that are of the 21st century. So utilizing that same innovative practice, I wanted to extend my practice to sculptures that could be in the outdoors and that could withstand high temperatures and go into a direction of very large dimensionality that I couldn't achieve with the acrylic materials. And that led me to researching the aerospace industry, and specifically carbon fiber. And carbon fiber is a material that is an incredible material because it can withstand really high fluctuations in temperature, winds, and it's also very lightweight considering the dimensionality and the scale that you can achieve with the material. And that led me to my next body of work, which is the aerospace monoliths. Specifically, this one, the circular base monolith that's 12 foot tall, was the first series that I embarked upon in the aerospace category. The first object of that series went to the collection of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art.
No te va a alumbrar mucho, ¿eh? Es muy pequeño también. No te va a alumbrar mucho.
And then the circular monoliths then led to an expansion in my thinking, and to further enhance the movement in the object, I created the parabolic monoliths, which have an elliptical base, as you can see here. And the elliptical base, shaped like an oval, enhances further the implied or inherent movement in the object as you experience it. The premise of the parabolic sculptures is the parabolic arch, which kind of loops around continuously from the base of the sculpture in every direction all around the object, which is a further expansion of my thought process on all sculptures containing inherent movement that incorporates life around us and the dynamic forces of the universe, such as gravity, expansion, ever-expanding universe, and all of that, the physical and quantum physics dynamics that exist. The monoliths are really special objects to me. They follow a lineage of minimalism in terms of the reduction of the aspects or the qualities that an object contains. And in traditional minimalist vocabulary, you have always your hard edges, your 90-degree angles, your lines, your demarcations that basically create a spatial termination or edges to the object. And so when I envisioned these parabolic monoliths, they were an enhancement to the circular monoliths that I had already created. And the enhancement was in terms of creating an object that had, as we know, no lines, no corners, no demarcations, no place for the human to rest their eyes when they're looking at the object. So the object becomes extremely fluid and continuous, and it embodies that sense of movement because it's slippery. You can't really stop looking at any point in time and say, well, here's the edge of the object, or here's where the object terminates and the space begins. It becomes extremely fluctuating and fluid and embodies a dynamic energy that other minimalist objects did not contain. And so the advancement in the parabolic monolith consists of adding an elliptical form as the base of the object so that the continuous movement not only occurs in a circular fashion, but also it occurs kind of an up and down constant parabolic arch. So it's really an embodiment of energy. So my discovery of carbon fiber was really a breakthrough because carbon fiber as a material has three qualities that are very important. Number one, it's really lightweight, so it allows you to move up in scale and make really large objects that are fairly lightweight for their dimensionality. Number two, it withstands extreme regions of temperature, so it can go very cold, very hot. And then the third, and one of the most important, is it allows you to make sculptures that are seamless. And I didn't want to have a line, I didn't want to have a seam, I didn't want to have any kind of demarcation or place where the sculpture ends and another section begins. I wanted it to be completely singular, unitary, and almost pure in form. And so carbon fiber and the aerospace technology associated with that allowed me to move into the aerospace monolith body of work, and it yielded these large-scale sculptures. Is that good? These are structural, this is the structural carbon fiber, this is a thicker carbon fiber, and here's the thinnest. So it's a composition of 3 different kinds of carbon fiber that get layered in multiple layers to get an aerospace level performance in the composition. In essence, what I've tapped into is that whole force of energy that is all around us in terms of the laws of the universe, gravity, how the planets rotate around the sun, how the cosmos is constantly in expansion. Every aspect of our lives are always in continuous movement and continuous transformation. And I've tried to embody that into the objects that I create and give that sense of constant motion, transformation, and change over time, which we're all subject to as humans on this planet. Nothing is consistent, nothing is going to be forever, and hopefully these objects embody that sense of continuity and just life in general. I look to life as my source of energy.
It's an epoxy resin, which is high temperature. And then those are the smell.
Yeah, I briefly explained the formal principles that underlie the creation of the monoliths, but moving beyond the formalist aspects of the object, some of the main inspiration for these have been the locations that I have lived in my life. Like, for example, when I grew up in Puerto Rico, the sense of growth, the sense of dynamic flora, fauna, that whole sense of life that the island has gave me that real jolt of energy that I feel compelled to put into the object. So you have that early childhood that I experienced all of that exciting kind of sense of the planet, the richness of the earth, you know, the sky, the ocean, the animals, all that goes into this. And then you overlay that kind of childhood experience with my experience here in Los Angeles, which is my adoptive hometown. I'm just as much a Los Angelino as a Puerto Rican. So it's kind of that combination of the geography of the earth. And LA is just this fantastic place with movement, the freeways that snake through the land, that gyrate. We're always in our cars moving. And the sense of constant energy. Los Angeles is going through a renaissance. In the 1960s, it had its first renaissance as kind of the birth of modernism, the birth of cool. But I feel that this decade has been a second renaissance that we're all experiencing, where the growth of the city has been unparalleled. The growth of the art world, the growth of just number of artists practicing in Los Angeles, the growth of the galleries, just the expansion as a whole in terms of being a creative hotbed where people can reinvent themselves. This whole sense of change and transformation really comes from the root of Los Angeles being a place where you can reinvent and you can rebirth yourself. You know, people come here from all over the world and they want to become somebody else, and this place allows you to become somebody else.
Goes inside and between the layers of carbon fiber to reinforce the layering of the carbon fiber for a total of 19 layers of carbon fiber of different thicknesses.
Pushing the sun up and down. There'll be no voids, no air pockets. The consistency of the thickness of the wire.
So I mentioned Puerto Rico, I mentioned Los Angeles, the great metropolis of Los Angeles, but there's another geographical location which has been influential, which has been the California desert. And that vastness of the desert, the open space, that feeling that you get when you go to the desert of your own mortality, because it feels so barren of life that it causes you to question human time, and then you compare human time and the short span of our lives with geographical time. When you look at the rocks, you look at the mountains, the formations that are out in the desert, it stuns you. It stuns you because it reminds you that you will die, that you are a mortal person, and that whole sense of urgency that it creates because you realize your own death is a certainty, that energy, that spark of life, that is so necessary for us to feel that jolt of life, to be able to live a meaningful existence. That goes into these objects. That goes into the parabolic monoliths in a very real sense. It's so we have these different places on the earth that I've tapped into and had all the different sources of energies coalesce into one object. Life has layers, and you layer upon layer. It's almost like a geographical archaeological dig, and things get overlaid in a subterranean landscape, and then eventually they germinate. But there's always that deposit upon deposit of earth and experience that then becomes the source that the artist taps into to be able to create. And that's what I tried to convey to you, is where does my creative spark come from? And a lot of it is that tapping into the different locations on the planet that are sources of energy or hotspots. It's a symbol of this amazing sense of energy and growth that I've been able to live through here. And I'm just so lucky that I live in this time and in this place on the earth. And I've tried to channel that dynamic energy, channel the sense of transformation of the future, because these are objects of the future. You know, the present time is always moving into the future. It's underlying every aspect of the universe and how we live in a place where there is nothing for certain. And so this whole concept of the future right now is the present, and it's becoming the future. And these objects feel that way to me.
Two guys, so you get the overlap proper. One side doesn't drive before yellow reflectors, that's why.
Los Angeles is the future. It's the city of the future. And we are living through some of the best times that I could ever imagine in this place. And it's really bigger than a city. It's a metropolis. It's the whole state. It's the light. It's the people. So I feel very lucky, and I feel happy that I've been able to create these objects that hopefully channel all of that spirit, the pioneering spirit of the West Forward, the pioneering spirit of creation, of rebirth, of regrowth. It's all in there, and it's just for you to tap into and make it your own, just like I did.